In the small town of Zvenigorod, in a two-story house with green shutters, lived the Vorontsov family. Nikolai Andreevich worked as an engineer at the local factory, and his wife, Elena Sergeyevna, taught at an elementary school. They had two children, 7-year-old Andryusha and 2-year-old little Veronika. Veronika was born weak. The doctors warned that the first years of her life would be especially difficult. The girl was often sick, slept poorly at night, and her parents would take turns sitting by her crib. From the moment his little sister appeared, Andryusha became her most devoted protector. When Veronika cried, he was the first to run to her crib. When their mother fed the baby, Andryusha would sit nearby and quietly hum songs he had learned in kindergarten. "Andryushenka, you are such a caring big brother," their mother would say, stroking his head. "But you need to get your sleep. Tomorrow is a school day." But with each passing month, Andryusha worried more and more about his sister. He noticed that Veronika often woke up at night and cried. At first, their parents would quickly come to her, but gradually from exhaustion, they began to respond more slowly. Then Andryusha made a decision that surprised the whole family. He started sleeping in his sister's room, setting up a small folding mattress next to her crib. "Son, what are you doing?" Elena Sergeyevna asked one morning when she found Andryusha in the nursery. "I'm guarding Verochka," the boy answered seriously. "She's little, she's scared to be alone." At first the parents thought this was just a childish game that would soon pass. But a week went by, then another, and Andryusha categorically refused to sleep in his own room. "Andrei, it's time to return to your own bed," his father said gently. "You have your own beautiful room. Your toys are there." "No, Papa." The boy shook his head stubbornly. "I have to be near Verochka. What if she feels bad and you don't hear her?" Nikolai Andreevich began to worry. A 7-year-old child should sleep in his own bed. He should have his own personal space. But every evening the same scene repeated itself. Andryusha took his pillow and blanket and went into his sister's room. "Maybe we should insist?" Elena Sergeyevna suggested to her husband. "Or consult a psychologist?" But Nikolai Andreevich remembered his own childhood. He also had a younger sister, and he knew how strong the need to protect someone weaker could be. The decisive moment came a month later, on a rainy October night. At 3 a.m., Nikolai Andreevich woke up to the sound of a child crying. But it wasn't Veronika crying, it was Andryusha. The father quickly got up and went to the nursery. There he saw an astonishing picture. 2-year-old Veronika was sitting in her crib, gently stroking her crying brother's head, just as their parents did with her. "Andryusha, what happened, son?" the father asked quietly, sitting down on the floor next to the mattress. "I had a scary dream," the boy sobbed. "That Verochka got sick. They took her to the hospital, and I couldn't protect her." Nikolai Andreevich felt his heart tighten with pain. His 7-year-old son was carrying on his shoulders a responsibility far too heavy for his age. "Andryushenka," the father said softly, hugging him, "you know that Mama and Papa are always here. We take care of Verochka and of you." "But you're asleep," the boy whispered. "And I hear when she feels bad. I can feel it." At that moment, Nikolai Andreevich understood something important. His son had a special sensitivity, a special bond with his sister. And instead of breaking that bond, they needed to help the boy cope with his anxiety. The next day, the father spoke at length with his son. He explained that caring was wonderful, but too much worry could harm both Andryusha and Veronika. "You know, son," said Nikolai Andreevich, "when I was little I also had a younger sister, your Aunt Katia, and I worried a lot about her too. Grandfather taught me something important then." "What was it, Papa?" he said. "Love and care do not mean worrying all the time. They mean trust and support. You can take care of Verochka without sleeping beside her every night." They came up with a compromise. They installed a baby monitor in Veronika's room that transmitted all the sounds to Andryusha's room. Now the boy could hear his sister while staying in his own bed. In addition, Andryusha received special responsibilities. Every morning he was the first to go to Veronika, helped his mother feed her, and read her fairy tales before her nap. "You are officially appointed Big Brother's helper," the father announced solemnly. "That is a very important position." The boy blossomed with pride. Now his care had taken on concrete forms, and he felt needed without being consumed by constant anxiety. Months passed. Veronika grew stronger and healthier. Andryusha still remained her protector, but it now manifested in new ways. He taught her her first words, helped her take her first steps, patiently built towers and pyramids with blocks. One evening, when Elena Sergeyevna was putting the children to bed, Veronika suddenly spoke her first meaningful sentence. "Andryusha, good." Tears welled up in their mother's eyes. Andryusha nodded seriously. "I will always be good for Verochka." When the children were asleep, the parents sat together in the kitchen over tea. "You know," said Elena Sergeyevna to her husband, At first I was frightened that Andriusha was so attached to his sister. It seemed unhealthy for a 7-year-old child. And now? Asked Nikolai Andreevich. And now I understand that we raised a son with a kind heart. Yes, he had to learn to manage his feelings, but the essence remained. He loves and he cares. Is that really a bad thing? Nikolai Andreevich nodded. When I decided to understand the situation instead of simply forbidding it, I realized the most important thing. Children feel more deeply than we think. Andriusha really sensed his sister's condition better than we did. It was necessary not to suppress this ability, but to teach him how to live with it. Several years passed. Andriusha went to the 3rd grade, and Veronika to kindergarten. Every morning he still walked her there, holding her hand. He taught her to ride a bicycle, defended her from bullies in the yard, helped with her first homework. Neighbors often said, "Look at what a wonderful boy the Vorontsovs are raising, so caring, so responsible." And every time, Elena Sergeyevna remembered those nights when 7-year-old Andriusha refused to leave his little sister's room. Back then it had seemed like a problem, but now she realized it had been love in its purest form. A 7-year-old boy refused to leave his little sister's room at night, she would tell her friends. When his father decided to get to the bottom of it, it turned out the child just loved her very much and was afraid of losing her. We didn't break that love. We helped it grow wiser. And indeed, Andriusha's love for his sister did not weaken with time, but on the contrary became deeper and more conscious. He learned to care without excessive anxiety, to support without suppressing, to love without limiting freedom. And Veronika grew up with the certainty that in this world there was someone who would always be on her side. And this certainty made her stronger, kinder, and more open to people. This story had no dramatic twists or unexpected turns. There was simply a family that managed to transform a child's anxiety into mature love, without destroying the most important thing: the heart's ability to feel and to respond to another's pain.